Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3.
Why, hello, and welcome to My Whiskey Den, your favorite public access whiskey review show where craft whiskey is king. We are a proud part of the Bar Cart Co-op with other fantastic shows like Distillers Talk and Bourbon Turntable. And tonight we are really lucky to have Kris from Golden Beaver here, all the way from California. We can't thank you enough for being on because you are doing some really interesting stuff with grains that most people are not, and I'm just excited to hear all about this. But
well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm ecstatic. But before we go any further, Mike, why don't you tell the people out there what to do?
All the things.
The
things. Okay.
Do you want the animated one?
You know what? Might as well be animated. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification to find out when new episodes are coming out, which are usually Monday nights. Don't forget to share this with your friends and family and leave a comment down below or in the chat with the people watching the show live on Mondays. And someday we'll be back on Facebook.
Yeah, we're just a small fight with their upgrade of things. So one more hurdle, and otherwise I'm going back to the old version of things. So gotta love that technology. But we're talking with Kris tonight. Thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with us. I've heard some fantastic stuff about what you are putting out. Quick question, what made you decide to open a distillery? Because I was going to say there's usually like a turning point that, I don't know, really kind of starts the ball rolling down the field. So kind of what was that point that made you want to start a distillery? And also with the grains that you use.
Well, it's a multi-part question, and it took some time. It wasn't overnight. So in 2010, I was premiering one of my PBS science specials, 400 Years of Telescope, in Edinburgh, Scotland. And the night the plane landed, the captain came on the microphone and said that we were the last plane to land in Northern Europe, and that our departure would be questionable because of the volcano in Iceland had gone off and covered all of Northern Europe in a cloud of ash. And of course, the planes couldn't fly in the ash. It would tear up the engines. So I was stuck in Scotland. And so we premiered the film the next day at the Edinburgh Science Festival. And then the next day, the organizer of the festival asked me what I was doing the following day. And I said, well, nothing right now. There's no way to get out of here. And so she says, well, would you like to do a master class on Scotch? And I said, sure, I'd love to. And she goes, well, I'm actually going to sign you up for 2. And her cousin, Charlie McLean, who's one of the leading authorities on Scotch, was her uncle, and he was putting on these 2 classes. So we ended up doing the 2 classes, which was about 20 drams of tasting over about 3.5 hours. And you learn in Scotland very quickly, you drink as much water as you're drinking booze. And it helps. It really does help. And you can get through it pretty easily if you do that. And so we did the class, and then we went to dinner together. And then during dinner, we started a conversation about coming up with an idea of doing a reality TV show. This is long before Anthony Bourdain and a lot of these reality food shows. And it was going to be Charlie's Spirit, or the Spirits of Charlie. And we were going to go around the world and have him do indigenous alcohol and talk about, the process and how they make bug juice down in Africa and bamboo juice in Asia, kind of go through the whole thing. And so then that conversation led to me joining him over to his home that evening. Now, this is like 11:30 at night. The guy's going, well, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, tonight? I just ate dinner. I'm going to bed, right? He goes, oh, no, not in Scotland, So got in his vehicle, went out to his farmhouse, beautiful old farmhouse. Inside the kitchen was a table that had to be a couple hundred years old. And he started bringing out these boxes of samples from all the distilleries of Scotland and Ireland, and kind of going through them. And we sat there until 7 a.m. in the morning, tasting all these different scotches. And I was totally blown away. I mean, there was the flavor spectrum was amazing, from tequila to bourbon-like to Ardbeg, chewing on a burnt log, all the way down to the whole thing. And he just educated me. And then I came back home, eventually made it back, and over the next couple of years, I kind of got the Scotch thing. And then one day I'm sitting there looking at the aisle of Scotch, going, I can't pronounce half of these names of these products, and I don't know all the history of these products. And I can turn and go down the next aisle, and it's all North American whiskeys, and it's bourbon, and that I know. And so I switched. I went back to American bourbon, started drinking it, and then in 2014, 4 years after this event, I lost my wife, who had gotten me into filmmaking, to cancer. And my love for filmmaking went with her, because we did everything together, and I just didn't foresee doing any more filming without her. Excuse me. And so I started poking around looking for different things to do. Ended up getting a still from my now current wife, and started distilling in my house. Again, it's not legal to distill at home. It is a crime. Disclaiming I'm not promoting it in any way, shape, or form. But I had been distilling for, a year or so. My brother came in from Vietnam, and was sitting there sipping on a bourbon I had done in these 1 gallon little casks. And he goes, "This is amazing. We ought to go into business." So 2 years later, this place was built, and we're up and running. So that's how it started. The grain, the reason I use rice is that most people don't realize that up here in Northern California, we have two major rivers. One is the Feather River, and one is the Sacramento River. And these two rivers are divided about 20 miles in some spots, 10 miles in others, from Sacramento all the way up here to Chico and up in towards a little bit towards Red Bluff. And because of that, the smart agricultural community that's here figured out a way to actually have water flow from one river down through the rice fields and into the other river, so that the water eventually all ends up back, it's not consumed either through evaporation or by the plants, ends up back in the river and back down and towards the bay. And that puts nutrients back in for the life down in the bay. So it's all a very cool plan, but this whole area is covered in rice. It's one of the largest rice growing regions in the United States. It makes a very specific rice called Calrose rice, and 90% of it's for export. Never gets consumed in the United States. It all goes to Asia for sushi. And it's highly prized in Turkey, also in China, of course, Hong Kong, Thailand, Vietnam. But it's consumed a lot by the Koreans and the Japanese with sushi. So that's why we use it. Like Alan always talks, use your local food shed. So that is our local food shed, is rice. The rice is also ties into the history of the name of our brand, which is the Golden Beaver. That area that's now all rice fields up at 1800s had about a population of 3 million beavers in it. And those beavers actually maintained the wetlands in Northern California, allowed the creation of the Pacific Flyway that had gone on for millennia, which is one of the largest flyways of birds in the world. And the Hudson Bay Company pulled up in about 1820, and within 4 years wiped them out. and hauled all those pelts off to Europe, and really affected California. The rice farmers have taken over some of that wetland duty for the beavers because they'll reflood their fields in the fall after harvest, so that the flyway has water, which is super important.
Yeah.
And then the rice farmers are also starting to get involved in helping with the salmon. If you take salmon hatchlings and you stick them into these what they call them rice checks here, but you call them rice patties. Most people know them as rice patties. If you put the salmon in there and rear them, they'll actually get a little bit stronger before they head out in the ocean, and that'll make them better. Their survival will increase. And so the story of the Golden Beaver is kind of wrapped up in all that. We support California Waterfowl Association here. We support beaver habitat restoration through funding of another nonprofit called the Water Institute out of Napa. So we do a lot of cool things to kind of honor the legacy of the beaver. But the main thing is we're using that rice.
No, that's excuse me. I'm glad that you're using something so local, and it is really unique in that area. I'm gonna spin back with your travel show before and thinking about trying different liquors or spirits from around the world. What's the craziest one you've tried? Because I'm assuming maybe you might have dabbled in some different ones with just by that. And sorry to take it off track.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. The bad news is that I could never convince the people I was pitching, which was PBS, that a liquor show would be good, because obviously alcohol is not good for PBS, even though most people drink while they watch PBS. I haven't figured that one out either. So it didn't go anywhere. But I have had, so the weird stuff I've had some stuff in Africa that's pretty, they sell along the road. Absolutely very questionable. A lot of floaties in it, but actually had a pretty good taste. I've had moonshine at Maggie Valley during the Hillbilly Jam. Also very tasty. Some of it's very tasty, and some of it's very questionable. The creativity of the human is not limited to region or anything else. I mean, we make some weird stuff here in America too, but the bug juice is probably the best. I had snake wine in China, going down the Yellow River. They make you drink it on the boat. You have no choice. They force you to do it. I was there filming 30 days filming for doing an anthropology program for PBS, and they love getting you to try something, and so I kept getting shoved in my face. I finally had it. It's like probably drinking. If you were in your biology class and you grabbed that snake and opened up the sample jar and drank out of it with the formaldehyde, it's about the same taste, I'm sure. But to each their own. It's all cultural. So
when you started in with the rice, did you have anyone that you could go to? Because it's not an American thing.
So I was sitting at Moonshine University, and they're just pounding this whole thing. First of all, it's a whole panic attack at Moonshine. The first 2 days, if you attend their 6-day distillers course, if you have any idea of going into this business, you will have the biggest anxiety attack you'll have in your whole life in the first 6 hours of that course, because they just go through this whole thing. You don't have enough money to start this business, and you'll never have enough money to go in this business. And they bring in the vendors. They tell you, you got to buy this chiller. Here's $30,000. You got to buy this mill. This is $40,000. You got to do this. You got to buy. They take you over to what's the still company there?
Vendome.
Vendome. They take you over to the Vendome, and of course that bill starts at $250,000. And you just sit there going, holy shit! I just want to put a couple. I just got done reading, a bunch of little books about how you could take 15, 30-gallon stills and do a little micro distillery, and you're like, that's kind of what I was thinking. And So you get to this anxiety attack. And then the second day, they come in, it's all pound, pound, pound on the local food shed. You got to be using local corn. You got to be doing heirloom corn. You got to be doing this. You got to get your rye locally. And I'm going, shit, man, rice country, just rice. And so we do have grains farther south, down by Woodland and farther south. And we have some very good farms that make some exceptional rye. We have a rye coming out in December that we've been tasting. It's just super great. It's super good stuff. So, it wasn't impossible, but we had this in between us and Woodland. We have, these thousands and thousands of acres of rice. So I'm like, well, we should do rice. That's what we should do. So I was sitting there, trying to deal with my anxiety attack. I start surfing the web, and I find this scientific paper written by this gentleman in Japan about no-cook rice fermentation. And I'm reading this thing, and I'm going, wow, this is cool. Takes 13 days. Okay, it's a little too long, but, that's doable. And started reading about it. I remember turning a couple of the instructors in the class and, man, look at this no-cook rice. And I got this look from the instructor that I knew rice is going to be the hardest thing to sell people in Kentucky. They don't want to hear about it. They don't, it is not traditional. And they immediately think, oh, you're going to get sake, you're going to start doing sake, you're going to start doing soju, you're going to, and I'm like, no, but I'm just saying we could make whiskey with rice, and this is pretty cool. And, just about that time, Jim Beam had put out a brown rice in part of their collection. I ended up finding 5 barrels over at MGP, which was part of an experiment with Michigan State University.
That's cool.
Or the University of Michigan. I go back and look at my notes. Super good. That's the Pacific Flyweight Bourbon, which we have sold out of. There are a few bottles still left over at Seelbach. So if anybody's looking for it, run over and grab them, because they're selling it for $25 less than I was selling, and we sold out of them. We're selling them towards the end. People were bidding on them here to get the last few bottles. So super good 4-grain bourbon. It's 6-7 years old at this point. Super tasty, but it had rice in it too. So it wasn't that rice hasn't been used as an adjunct in bourbon. It just wasn't widely used or thought of. And obviously for regionality, no one's growing rice in Kentucky or in Indiana. The closest you can get probably is Arkansas. So I came back from Moonshine U, and I went to work. I tell this story. At one point, I'm surprised that my wife didn't divorce me. Probably it's that newlywed period of time is why she accepted it. But we had 8-gallon buckets, white buckets, with all types of different rice and rice malt. And because we have a rice maltster here in Chico, we're the only place in America that has one, other than
crazy.
Budweiser other than Budweiser, then Coors, which is all internal. There's actually a rice maltster here. So I went, and he has the spectrum of malt, just like you would with barley. And so I tried everything from, a pale all the way through a chocolate, and went through all of them. And we had these buckets all through the hallways, because it's 109 degrees outside today, and it was about the same time that year. And so you're not going to put your fermentations out in the sun. So they're in the house, and they're in the hallway, they're in the bathtub, they're in the bathroom, and they're everywhere. And then on the weekends, I would distill them out and taste them and decide what we want and keep on moving. But so that's how we developed our mash bill that we use now for Beaver Liquor, which opens us up to about 5 other SKUs of spirits off of that one mash bill. And so I think we're unique in that way too. So I don't think, someone will sell you a white dog, or they'll sell you the whiskey, but they won't sell you a vodka off their white dog. Type of thing.
Is anyone approaching you now saying, hey, I want to make some rice whiskey?
There's a guy that's in Sacramento. who's just starting up a distillery. He's coming in and pinging, looking around, trying to get some ideas. There is another distiller in Sacramento that has done a single malt rice whiskey through our maltster here, and he did it. I don't know how much success he's had with it, but I did taste it. Wasn't bad. And then there's a guy down in Louisiana, and I apologize for forgetting his name, who's doing rice. And I think there's one other guy over in South Carolina that's doing rice. So there's a couple of us out there. But
do you think there's a chance for any standards for it?
Oh, I would love to see an American rice whiskey standard. I would absolutely embrace it. I think, it is so marketable. I'm telling this to somebody the other day. I do worry about the domestic market. It is a concern and it is a focus, obviously regionally for sure. But I don't know if I would make or break that I care if somebody in New York drinks our whiskey. I would far prefer somebody in Tokyo or somebody in Korea, Seoul, buy our whiskey, because they will buy it in greater volume and enjoy it more because they don't have a preconceived notion of what rice whiskey should taste like, right? So the minute you say rice to somebody, they go, "Oh, that's sake." No, it's not. It's not. Yeah. We don't use koji. We don't use koji. And if your listeners don't know the two different fermentation methods between the East and West, the East uses a fungus called koji, and that's what gives things like bean curd and miso soup and sake that distinct flavor. And here in the West, we use bacteria, and that's yeast. And those two different organisms do the same thing in fermentation. They'll both convert sugar and starch, or sugar, into an alcohol. And so that's the big difference. So if someone takes a nose, well, they'll nose our White Dog, our Beaver Liquor Moonshine. They'll nose it, and if you don't say rice, they don't think anything of it, and they drink it, and they'll come. If you say it's got rice, they go, "Oh, I smell sake." It's like, well, you can't, because the odor off the sake, the nose of sake is from koji.
Yeah, so say it's different. Completely.
It's totally different, and so we bump up into that a little bit. But we really do worry more about our potential in the international marketplace than here domestically, because Calrose is so sought after in Asia. It's a premier rice, top end, super luxury item, and we're making a luxury product. We hope to be making and coming off as a luxury product when we start shipping over to Asia.
Well, and I think it kind of leans into it with what you're doing there. Like you said, picking a choice rice for what's getting into it. When you were going over some of the other rices, was that one of the ones that had a better flavor profile? Because it sounded like you went through a few different ones.
Yeah, we did. I played with some long grain rice, and we tried some. There's even a smaller grain. This is Calrose is a mid grain rice. There's a small grain rice, different taste profile. And rice is just like corn. I mean, you could spend a lifetime making different spirits with different rice, just like you can do with different corn. They're all going to have a unique taste, but in the beginning, and this is going back to your question about a rice standard here, rice whiskey standard in America, it would be great to have a standard of saying, okay, it has to be domestic rice, can be any varietal, you have to use yeast, not koji, and can go in a used barrel, go in a new barrel. Our whiskey, we use both. I mean, we do a blend of half new and half used, depending on the flavor profile. We might do a little more new or a little more used, depending on what we're doing with the blend. But I think it should be up there just like single malt. Single malt got one. I always thought, well, you're going to do single malt rice? I mean, there's a whole nother conversation too.
I was going to say it could qualify under that. I mean, if you were going to lean that way, for sure.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. It won't qualify under the current draft because they specifically call out malted barley.
Barley. Yeah.
They should. It would have been nice if they would made it a little more general and say malts.
Malted grain. Yeah,
You know,
malted grain.
Yeah, malted
It
grain.
could be malted grain. Then you could have been malted corn. It could be malted rye. It could be malted rice, and still be a single malt.
Yeah.
And that would have been saved a lot of paperwork for the TTB because they could just all bundle it up in one package.
Yeah.
But politics are politics.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was a question I was going to ask. So as I'm sure you've experienced dealing with distributors and trying to get things out and about, even across states, is definitely no picnic. And I mean, kind of a, I don't know, kind of a sham. But is it easier to get it overseas than it is to get it into another state in the United States?
It is actually. So we're about to make a huge shipment over into Vietnam, and we basically because we're a certified DSP, we have the rights to export. You basically do the paperwork and you box it up and pay your taxes, and it goes out the door. And they pick it up on the other end. They pay the duty on their end because they're importing it, so we're not involved in that. But it is a little. We don't have to deal with the three-tiered, situation that was left over by the gangsters running bootlegging and the history of the three-tiered system.
Yeah,
there's
as opposed to the gangsters running it now.
I didn't say that. You said that. I did not.
I've
say
said
that.
it, and
We've said it many times here.
I'm not gonna. We're using libdib, and that gives us a little flexibility to be set our own path and our own goals, and we achieve them by having a good sales team we're putting together here to basically go in there and get our place on the shelf. And we're not expecting another distributor who may or may not want us on the shelf that day because somebody else incentivized their cases to go in before ours. So we'll see how it goes. But I would love to see an overhaul of the three-tiered system. I think it's antiquated. I think it's no longer needed in a lot of ways. I think we're trying to get a direct-to-consumer bill going here in California, and it's stalled right now in the Assembly. It got passed with all but 2 votes in our state Senate, and now it's stalled because the unions got in there, and which doesn't make sense. I mean, one of the unions is, I think, the UPS union. They're going to benefit from direct-to-consumer from us, but they're supporting the distributors. Obviously, there's a couple of different sides of UPS. They have big truck hauling too, so I'm sure that plays a bigger role in that. But they don't think we should be doing it, and they have the money, obviously, to influence those assembly members to keep the vote from going. So I hope it comes around. I hope it gets at least a vote on the floor. It'd be nice to see who's against it, who's not. It'd be really interesting to see.
It's nice to see that laid out there. And when you start looking at Europe and stuff where Amazon can ship you your liquor and you can order it, and then they have Prime Day deals and you get like discounts and crazy stuff, it's like, let's be honest, a lot of spirits are being muled through the UPS and FedEx in anyways. So just, be honest about it and have it go through and not have it be like a hush hush. It's not happening. It really is happening that no one cares about type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the fear of younger individuals, so that those under 21 obtaining those packages, I think there's some credibility to it.
Okay.
But I think it's also overblown quite a bit. I think most adults who's going to buy something from a distillery like me probably are either newlyweds or they're empty nesters because they don't have the expendable income to buy it otherwise. If they have a family, then they're probably buying a lot of different things, cigars, through the mail. They're buying their wine club, They get their box of wine every 4 weeks. Why not me?
Right.
Why are my civil liberties being basically stepped on because we sell an alcohol that's over 24 proof?
Yeah.
Just crazy. So anyway, I'm a libertarian, so I can just tell you right now, I'm not into the rules. I'm not into people running my business.
You're in fair company.
Yeah, you're pretty safe here.
Yeah.
I'm going back.
We have issues. I'll say that. While Pat's doing it, I am nosing on. I'm nosing on the Pacific Flyway whiskey batch 2 that you sent.
Yep. Let me grab a glass of that. Hold on.
For the rest of you,
it is a little different from batch 1.
Okay.
I have a tiny sample of batch 1 that I'm going to compare when we do our other tasting. And for everybody else, Patrick won't get his till tomorrow.
Life happens.
Right.
That's happened
Because
to Mike
he's in
before.
Wisconsin.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. He only shared one address with me, Patty. And I'm just telling you, man. That's you got to work on that.
Well,
It's happened the other way before. So
I split the bottle up, so we got it going out, and I'm making sure Mr. Rose is getting a sample of batch 2 too. So he's
good. So this is a little longer in the cask than our first batch. So some of the properties we pick up in this is I think a little longer. And I think it's one of those things. Your cask does this, so down here it was great. Here it was a little hot, a little peppery. Now it's back down here, but it does have some nice properties. It's great on ice, and it's great to get it really ice cold. It's almost like stick the bottle in the freezer and enjoy it that way on a hot day. I mean, right now everything in California is super hot, so we're not thinking wintertime campfire. We're thinking cooling off. So, but it's a nice light whiskey, and it is to make sure people aren't confused. Light whiskey is whiskey that's distilled coming off at over 160 proof. This is not that. When I say it's a light whiskey, it is a light bodied whiskey. It's not a heavy, oily whiskey.
But that's not simple. The nose is definitely not simple on this. The two biggest things that I get right off the bat, I get a honey, and then I'm getting a very specific pear, like when someone would send you those big pears at Christmas time.
Yep.
And there's a little bit of spice to it. I'm not saying that, I don't want to say this is a Christmas thing, but it just reminds me of, because someone, the novelty, big freaking pear they're just bigger and sweeter. And
that's how we train our people to know where to make the cuts. Because when you're doing your spirit run, of course you get that, heavy alcohol nose coming off. You get obviously all the heavy chemicals coming through. And you get that nose, but when you start to smell the pear and when you taste the pear, that's when you switch the pot. And that's when you start collecting. Yeah. And it's a very distinct moment in the run. I had a gentleman here, actually Rick Gibson, who built the thumper behind my head. He was here last fall. We're doing a run, and he's watching us fill up our heads tank, and it's up about 15, 16 gallons. Going up to 20, and he goes, "You're gonna throw? What's all this?" And I said, "Well, that's all heads." He goes, "You're gonna throw that out?" I said, "Well, we'll use it for other things." And he goes, "That's a lot of whiskey there." And I'm like, "Well, just wait." And he tasted. He goes, "Well, it tastes good enough." I said, "Just wait." And we went back to soldering on Tina behind me here, and a few minutes later, my son brought over a glass of the White Dog coming off the still, and it had turned. It had gotten to that point where it was heavy pear. And we gave it to Rick, and Rick goes, "I've been doing this a long time. I've never tasted alcohol like that." He goes, "That is so different." And I said, "Well, that's where you make the cuts." And I said, most people who are running a business get very anxious when they're seeing that rise of that tank filling up with heads, and they think they're losing out money. And but I think you can drink I don't think, I could probably testify, You can drink a lot of our spirits, doesn't matter which one, and you will not wake up with a throbbing headache. And that's because we're very religious about that cut. And of course, it's coming off a pot, so it's a clean cut. It's not like a column still. So
yeah. And you do, am I correct? You blend 2 different types of barrels?
we do. So this is we take used bourbon barrels. So it's a mixture of Buffalo Trace right now. At this point, we have some MGP barrels, and then we have new American Oak from ISC, Char 3 medium toast.
Nice.
Because there's a little bit of it's a pastry dough nose on it too. And I can tell you what it reminds me of, or it's reminiscent of, because you're talking about like I don't want to say beginner's whiskey, but it's for like a whiskey that for someone who's a beginner. Way back,
Right.
Compass Box Scotch they were making a Sila, which was, I thought that was a fantastic gateway for people who are like, oh, I can't have Scotch, or oh, I can't have this. There's where people turn away from the alcohol burn and everything. This on the nose, this is not, but it's not simple by any means whatsoever. This is not a simple nose. And it sure as hell doesn't smell like a light whiskey. If anyone was one comparable, this does not smell like a light whiskey.
But you need to get Robin Robinson on your show. He worked for Compass Box for years, and he's here, and he's in New York. Super nice guy. I'm sure he'd share his knowledge with you, and a lot of history.
Yeah.
And a place that is like very, very open about what they're doing and putting it in front of you and just being like, damn, isn't that tasty? Where people hide stuff. It's like, here, this is the exact measurements.
Yes,
I think we did a damn good job. And I've always agreed.
I feel like if they could print a middle finger on some of their bottles anywhere pointing to Scotch whiskey, I think they would. But I just love all that. We're just like, fine, you're gonna give me these BS rules. Guess what I'm gonna do?
Right.
And it's great whiskey too. Okay, yeah, wow. This is for not being heavy bodied. It's very layered in the flavors, but there's starting to get a little chocolate on it too, along with the honey and pear and stuff. It's like a little chocolate on there. This is really nice.
I'm gonna want to have some sushi with that rice at some point. I'm just saying. I mean, it sounds like a perfect pairing. You know what I mean?
Well, a little bit later we'll talk about the perfect pairing.
Okay.
I told you we have an announcement at the end.
So I'm curious. Do you guys do you have like a specialty cocktails that you make with this?
Well, we make a little bit of everything. We just did our first batch, which was the batch you guys have been enjoying currently. We not this batch, but the previous batch. We did 400 bottles and it was sold out in 12 weeks, or not 4 weeks. We were out right away, and so this is our first batch that we can actually allow the staff to start working on the mixology. So we didn't get a lot of cocktails in Christmas time because they all went out as presents. So, and that was and it was more of a sipping whiskey. With this one, I think this will lend itself a little more to the cocktails because it's got a little more spice on it. It's got a little more spiciness than the first batch, and that's the blend that we did this time. And so it's not bad. It's just again that small batch. You get different. It's like children. They all have their own little set of characteristics.
I like the honest variants that happen. I mean, that's the whole point of like a bottled in bond to some extent is, this is what happened this year. It may not be what happens this year, and this year, but here's like a specific thing. So I think just in general, that's great. I did miss a question from before, and we understand how yeast is exciting and protective for some people, but have you found a yeast that works better for rice starch conversion, or is that not a
Yeah, so our main issue here was heat because our fermentations bump up against 100 degrees, and so that eliminated a lot of more traditional brewer's yeast, of course, and a lot of distillers yeast can go that hot. But we worked with Pat Heist over at Wilderness Trail, and we're using one of his yeast right now, and can take the heat, and it throws out some really nice flavors, and it's very easy to work with, and the rice seems to enjoy it. It converts pretty quick.
Nice.
So, it's a combination of, I could do the no-cook Japanese method with the yeast because that'll still work even though it's not koji. But I don't have 2 weeks to wait for the mash. We got to stay in production. So.
Do you have any plans to do any bottled and bond?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. But we're just like all young distilleries, man. We gotta put it out there. And, we have a 4-grain bourbon coming. We took a similar mash bill approach as the University of Michigan had done on the 5 barrels that they had done with the MGP, which is our flyweight bourbon. And that'll be getting released here. I'm going to guess probably in a year, maybe a year and a half. We'll probably go a little bit longer. But California, we're kind of like Texas. We don't have the humidity of Texas, so our alcohol ages pretty quick in the barrel.
This is what I was going to ask. Like with you being so hot a lot of the times, and then between just day and night, you can easily have like a 30, 40 degree swing where you are. I was wondering how that, like you said, just how that worked out on the barrels.
Well, I think it gives us a faster maturation rate than, let's say, somebody that is, goes up in a rick house and, summertime it's here and it just stays level all the way through. We get up to 60 degree swing here. If we get a very strong Delta breeze in here and we open up the doors to our containers, we'll start down in the morning at 65 degrees in the container. And by the afternoon, it'll be 125 to 135 degrees. And then that Delta breeze will come back through, open up the door, that cold air comes whipping back in, or cooler air comes back in and chills. And then when we're talking springtime, that can even be a bigger swing because it's actually colder air coming up. The Pacific's 55 degrees out there off the coast. So when that cold air comes across the hill or up the valley, it can knock down to 55 degrees pretty quick in the evenings. And that's great. I love it when it's like that.
Are you, it sounds like you're approaching close to double digits for your angel share.
It's funny. We're losing them equally. So we put this in at these whiskeys that this blend went in at 110, and when we dumped, they're at 114. And our total loss was probably about 8% over a year and a half, 2 years. That's the other thing. You're drinking a sub 2-year-old whiskey here, which nobody in their right mind would serve a sub 2-year-old whiskey to anybody. If it wasn't rice, I don't think. So, or I might not be in the right mind. I could be crazy. But.
We like to surprise people with some every now and then. Yes. That's the best part, especially with stuff like this. You're like, in a blind, when people have no idea, it's like, how old is that? And you're like, yeah. How old do you think it is before we start talking?
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
there's a few.
Go ahead.
Oh, and so there's a few that we've had that were, you'd be really surprised on the age, but it was also designed around that, all the environment and everything, the grain, the yeast, all that was designed around that to where it worked. And it didn't have to be 6 or 7, years old for someone to look at it. But, one of them is a 6-month-old wheat whiskey that I don't know if you've met her, if you heard people talk about Kelly Tennille, but she made it, and holy shit. I mean, it's pretty good. I'll send some back your way because we've got some saved. It's very surprising.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another stigma that we got to get over in this industry. You know, it carries over from Scotch, of course. You know, you don't buy a Scotch unless it's 15, 20, 25 years old. 8-year-old Scotch at the airport, you know, you buy it because it's a gift, right? I mean, that's kind of the thinking. You know, now in bourbon, you know, all the experts will tell you 4 to 6, and I think that's even maybe too old. I think 2 to 6 is legitimate, depending on who the craftsman is or person is who's making that whiskey. I think we need to get off age a little bit. I think they're, you know, again, if it tastes good, it's good, and the distiller knows or the blender knows if it's good or not, and if they accept it, you know, it should be accepted. So I think we need to change our thinking when it comes to whiskey a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, total agreement with that, because there are some fantastic young age things that are highly underrated. But that's why blinds are great, but also humble me and other people from time to time.
Right.
There's just an honesty there. Some people like, I hit everything. I'm like, no, I didn't. I was only like 4 for 6 today. It was not a great day. Because I know I got one right, because I just, you know, I flip flop too by just like one flavor. Like I was not on.
It's tough, and your palate does change day to day, and that's something. That's why you have a crew. You don't do it yourself. I don't know how the lone distiller does it at home. You know, if you're on the production floor, there's going to be days that your palate's off, and you have to turn to somebody and say, "Hey, taste that. What do you think?" You know, you have to have that feedback, and that's just the reality. You know, there's people that come in here and I don't like the taste of that. And you're like, okay, well, you know, come back, at least try it again sometime. They'll come back and goes, you didn't serve this to me last time. I don't remember that if you served that to me last time. And I go, our tastings are all the same. I mean, we served it to you before. It's just your palate changed, and now you like it. And that's why you should never walk away from a whiskey or a spirit. If you tried it once and it just wasn't great, you know, go back and visit it, you know, 3-4 months later or a year later. Just don't give up on it. I mean, we give up
from the same batch where I don't like this bottle, and all of a sudden you have a different bottle, and you're like, it was wonderful, and you're like, what the hell is wrong?
Yeah. So, and the palate changes, you know. So, and we've all been going through COVID and colds, and you know, we're all now getting common colds for the first time in 2 years because we were masked up for 2 years. So now we're dealing with, you know, sinuses and everything else that we're not used to. You know, so our palates are going to change and vary, and we need to be aware of that while you're tasting or doing anything. And then don't get stuck drinking the same stuff. I mean, if you drink the same stuff, you're going to get your palate's going to go dead.
That's what I was going to ask you, with you being kind of like the outlier with the flavor that you use. What other? I mean, obviously you try other people's stuff, but how frequently do you try other people's whiskey and stuff to kind of keep your guys' palates fresh versus kind of getting stagnant with just tasting your own stuff?
Every day we'll have a little taste of something that's different. I mean, I have a lot of bottles we've collected over time. In fact, today I just got a bottle from Liberty Pulse Spirits out of Washington, PA. So Jim Ho sold us our first still back here, and the still's name is Harold. And we agreed, you know, we promised to keep Harold's name the same when we brought him over here. And so they sent us a bottle of a blend of rye from Harold's reign when Harold was doing it to now they have a big Harold, which they've gone from a 300-gallon Trident to I think it's a 600-gallon specific. What's it called? Specific out of Canada. They make stills out of there. Very similar design to the pot and column. So it's so we have that. So that's something we tasted today. It's excellent rye. But we're always tasting. We're always challenging the staff to bring something in. All of our staff here have to go through the bourbon stir program. Everybody here, if they're going to work here, whether they work in a bar or they're going to work in sales, or it's basically all we have right now. They have to come in and they have to do 3 months as an assistant distiller in the back. Pull hoses, learn the process, learn what we're doing, understand what we're doing, develop their palate, and then be able to sit down and have an educated conversation with a customer if they come in and ask a question.
That's
No
fantastic.
deer in the headlight looks from our staff. We want everybody to be up to speed and what I'd love to be is, as my staff grows and mature, I'd love to see them jump off and go work at other distilleries someday. I mean, I'd love to, be able to launch somebody's career. And when they outgrow this place, please go and do something somewhere else even better. And we focus, we have 2 women working right now. With the second one's going to start next Monday. And then I have, two local California boys that grew up here that are of Hispanic heritage. So we focus on doing it right. We don't need to be dictated on, step up and do whatever, what's to do right. Find people who are hungry and give them an opportunity.
I think that's awesome because getting the people who are out front selling or understanding how it works in the back gives them that much more of an authority over what they're doing. A lot of times it's just, you're based, sometimes it's a bartender, yes, can be extremely knowledgeable, but if you getting the knowledge of how things happen beforehand, I think is extremely wonderful and key to people explaining it later on a tour or a tasting or anything. You can get that extra torque of knowledge that other people are going to be missing. That makes the tour more exciting. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and it gives them confidence. I mean, the bottom line is that they feel comfortable talking to people about the product that they're making or representing, and that's really important because in some sales situations and some tour situations, you get one shot. They're going to try your product once, and if you don't get them hooked through education on what your product is, you may not get the customer back. So it's important.
Yeah. So with bringing everybody on board, I guess he's kind of tying to each other. One, what made you go after the Tennessee Thumper? And when you're bringing new people on and having them go that, are they just amazed watching the thing? Because it's cool to see one going, but
right. I think the word you're looking for is scared shitless. Yeah. I think when you tell them that they're going to have to run a Tennessee Thumper at some point, there is some fear in their eyes. So you don't do it right away. You just don't. That's not the way you train somebody. You build, of course, and you build off of a pot still, and you deal the, one pot, do your strip, then you take them to a finishing run, and then if you take that finish, you got to throw it back in the pot and do an infusion for doing gin. Get them comfortable with that, and then you're going to go teach them how to run the vodka column, and they're going to go through that and get comfortable doing that. Once they master that, because if you can drive a vodka column, these hybrid columns are a pain to run. We call ours Layla because she puts you on your knees and she doesn't let you back up. She's very tough to run, and because it's hard to get 192 or better coming off your still. And there's a lot of distillers probably don't hit 190. They've ringed the bell and that's all fine, but we try to be craftsmen here, and we try to get over 192 and hold the 192. And it's a little difficult. You got to keep working at it to collect enough vodka to do that. But you teach them, you bring them up to that point, and then you bring them over. And when you bring them over to the Thumper is going to be the creativity. Now they can express their creativity. I mean, we've done pumpkin spice here, we've done cinnamon, we've done mango and habanero. We did some peach and orange, came out like triple sec. We've done some cool stuff, but the problem we had is that we were only running off of a 14, 16 gallon pot as a boiler feeding the Thumper. And we had ordered a 100-gallon boiler from Rick Gibson, And Rick's a nice guy. You just got to prod him to get your stuff. You know, it took a year for us to finally get this 100-gallon boiler in here. And we're going to set all this up in our new tasting room. It's about 6 miles from here. And we're going to be running nothing but infusions through that every day. And now we have enough volume with that 100 gallons that we're not just running 5 gallons and calling it a day, which is what we used to do off the 14 gallons still. So now we can actually get some production going and throughput through. And we're creating this new environment. We're going to call it the Still House. And the Still House, when you walk in, is a still house. It's an old hillbilly still house inside a building. So when you walk in, you see this, kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean thing going with jungle juice and, making all these different infusions that we can do off the Tennessee Thumper. It's going to be a little bit of a show. But the bartenders will come out and they'll, because they're distillers first, they're going to say, we're going to do this infusion this week specifically for this cocktail. And so people will be able to sample that cocktail and they can buy a couple of jars if they want. And it may not come back for 6 months. It'll be a one-time shot or seasonal shot. And then we just each week we'll do something different in the Thumper. And the staff will have that ability to pick and choose what they want based on what they want to serve at their cocktail bar, because we have a lot of ownership here. You should have empowerment to work in your business and your company and feel that it's your company. And so we take a lot of feedback from the staff on what they want to do.
Lets you lean into holidays and stuff like that too as they come through, not just with like releases that you're doing, but just like you said, in-house things that you're bringing people there. And a lot of times that secondary income is very important. So
yeah, so we'll have a lot of good stuff going. We're going to be doing some absinthe now that we have capacity with the boiler. We did a short run of absinthe and it just wasn't enough to tell if it was, the right thing or not. We got to really get a load on. So, we're looking forward to that happening. And, but it's a great tool. It's just another tool in our arsenal of making great spirits. And we're looking forward to getting out there and making a run. And, we give Rick Gibson a lot of shit every chance we get. I mean, with Alan Bishop and I and everybody else, we pound on him. Christy, we all pound on Rick pretty hard, but he is a craftsman, and craft takes time.
Yeah.
So
what other differences will there be between the two facilities? Are you gonna add equipment or move equipment?
We're moving with the Thumper that's behind me. You see the jars behind me. It'll be going down with the new boiler, and that's going to be the only thing that's in the new still house down there.
Okay.
And the reason why we have to do the still down there, the state of California, we can't have a secondary tasting room unless we're another whole distillery. So we have to relicense as another distillery, even though it's under the same DSP. And under federal rules, we just have to be within 10 miles and you can have a rick house, you can have another tasting room, you can do whatever you need. In California, we actually have to get another Type 74 license to operate this tasting room. So that requires us to actually have another still operating in that location. And so that'll be the Thumper. So we'll take second distillation finish here, run it down there, charge the still, and then run the Thumper. So it'll be a clean and very clean operation. It'll be very neat and tidy. So we're looking forward to that. So
you guys do a lot of live music. You have some really great posts about that. Are you gonna? Well, obviously, I'm assuming you continue that as long as you can, but will you do that at both locations or just concentrate that at the main?
No, just at the new tasting room. We're going to go to 2 shifts a day here. We're going to increase our productivity. And so put it on the 2 shifts and limit the public interface here. Not that we don't love the public. We don't love our fans. It's just really hard. Somebody running a still, trying to charge a still, and has to come down and sell a bottle or talk to a customer or ask a question. So we're going to leave all that type of activity down on Park Avenue, and then up here we'll just focus on production. So it'll hopefully help in two ways. We'll obviously make a better customer experience down there, and we'll have music down there. We're actually in what's called the beverage district that's slowly building here. There's a brewery very close by called Secret Trail, which is right across the street. Super great beers. We do some collaboration with them with some barrels. And then immediate across in the same kind of parking lot area, we have another, it's basically a bar, but it's a very unique bar. You get a card when you walk in, you give them your crack card, they give you back a white card, and you go and you self pour all your beers. And there's like 60 beers that they have on tap. And then they're going to expand that. Also have some live music venue that they're building right now while we're building out our new tasting room. So they'll have a lot more live music, and we have a roll-up door in this building, and we'll be able to listen to that music coming in. So somebody who doesn't want to be in the loud section of the music, they can saunter over and sit down and enjoy the music and have a cocktail with us, or even have a beer. So it's going to be kind of a cool little scene that you can rotate between these three different drinking establishments, and we'll hopefully get some more people in there. We have a cider guy that was in that location. He relocated to have a better production facility. Maybe we can entice him back with just a tasting room and get him over there and have some more of that. But music, Chico is a music town. There's a lot of good artists in here. My brother's a professional musician too. He's just returned from Asia, so we'll try to get him in with a guy named Big Mo. They've done Big Mo's a favorite over at the Monterey Jazz Festival. Super vocals, great guitarist, awesome guy. Hopefully get him over there a little more often, and get him and Tom on stage. And then we have another guy who's coming in, kind of folding into the family here, and he's also got some great pipes on his, and also a very good musician as well. So I see a future there with these three guys coming in as kind of the house band. So
cool, very cool. I was curious, do you still have your rat rod?
We still have. So Frank is working on that, one of our partners. We do have the rat rod. The engine blew back in June, which made really bad timing for taking it down to the Hillbilly Jam in Maggie Valley. But hopefully we'll get out there next year and show off. So it's our shiner rod. It's really cool little rat rod. Extremely very fast and very torquey. So.
Yeah. Well, that's to evade the authorities. So.
Exactly. Well, when you're running beaver liquor, you got to be careful. So
that's right. Yeah, that's one another thing I was gonna bring up, because your naming of the distillery and everything, there's a very good solid reason for it, but you don't escape the obvious tongue-in-cheek stuff that people are gonna crack jokes about. But I've seen some t-shirts and things like the women's shirts and stuff where you're all in embracing it, and I can only assume your wife is just like, yes, you have to do this.
Everything gets checked by her. If it's not, there's been stuff proposed that was not authorized. But it's an adult beverage.
Right.
We never even got the Golden Beaver thing. Honestly, none of us. None of the partners. My wife didn't catch it. Nobody caught it. We opened up the door, and all these middle-aged, horny men came in, like, where's the Golden Beaver? Like, we didn't catch it. And we're just like, oh shit, because we're honestly committed to this cause, and we're
right.
Totally, it's not a scam. It's not it's a serious thing. In fact, the state of California just hired 6 new employees to manage a division within the Department of Wildlife here. Their whole job is to manage beavers and get them back in making wetlands in the foothills here in areas where there should be, to stop all the wildland fires that we have here. So it's a serious thing. That being said, the Beaver Liquor Moonshine, Likker, is just good Americana. I mean, it's just America, and it's an adult beverage, and we embrace it. We get criticized for it, but there's a fine line, and we know not to cross it, and we try to keep it straight. I mean, the bottle, the stuff is won platinum from Fred Minnick for taste. That's the base.
That's what I'm having right now.
That's the base of the whiskey. The bottle design got a platinum as well. So, we try to do it classy, but we do have a little fun with the T-shirts and, liquor responsibly and all that. It's all part of our mission to, have a little fun with telling people to drink responsibly and not to go nuts. I mean, that is a responsibility of any distiller and any company that's selling alcohol, is make sure you have a message going about drinking responsibly. We just do it a little fun. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's,
have to.
We won our first award at the American Craft Spirits Association last year. It was right during COVID, and one of the folks over at Garrison Brothers would not announce that Golden Beaver Liquor Moonshine had won an award. He refused to say any of it, and so I thought that was a little bit of a telling sign of what we're going to be facing moving forward with our own community. I mean, I was pissed. I got on the phone and right away with the president and said, hey, I spent a lot of money on my marketing and branding, and he doesn't have the right not to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
Read the winner completely,
Yeah.
So it was kind of uncool, but again, he had the thought in his head. We didn't have the thought in our head. We built the brand.
Yeah.
We have a product that's using a colloquial spelling of liquor, and if you think everyone thinks the way you do and you think it's dirty, I guess that's just you. So
yeah.
Anyway, went down the rabbit hole there.
We've gone down that hole about that before too, because I mean, what's more offensive, talking down other people in the industry consistently, or making a joke about somebody's name? So,
well, I'm just waiting for the Beaver Liquor Chicken Cock collaboration. I hope it comes.
That could happen.
Yeah, that could be one hell of a blend.
It could be.
Here's a guy that's 40 years in the industry and has a brand like that, and nobody bats an eye at it. And we get pounded on, because somebody takes offense to it. So anyway, it's the liquor business, boys.
Yeah. That's right.
Like Robin Robinson said the other day, it's always been a gangster business, and it always will be. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very true. All right. Well,
Yeah. This the Beaver Liquor Moonshine is it's really nice. I mean, I was nosing it for a while. Like, all right, this is one of the I mean, would you? I know you have to call it a distilled spirit specialty, but would you actually classify this as this truly is the new make that comes off of?
It is.
That comes off the still.
Dog. It is the white dog comes off the still, and it is it's moonshine by definition, just like any white dog. It's an unaged rice whiskey, so it is embraces all the requirements of a moonshine or a white dog. So, and it's actually
also.
Go ahead.
Oh, go go ahead.
No, go ahead. I think you're leading into it, so I'll just shut up.
I want to say that this is, if you were this goes against any preconceived notion someone has about new make spirits. The nose, the flavor, everything, it goes against what you've had before, what you've bought before that was called new make, even stuff from people buy the Buffalo Trace White Dog. This goes against it.
It's very drinkable. It's it lends itself maybe a little bit. A lot of people say it's a little bit like white tequila. It's got some tequila-esque kind of attributes to it, but it's great. You can make a martini with it. You can mix it with gin and tonic. We call those BLTs, beaver liquor and tonic. You can. There's a new really cool thing that Sierra Nevada does right now. Did I get that right? Called Hop Splash, and it's basically sparkling water that's been infused with hops. So it's zero calories, but has a lot of citrus notes in it, like hops do have. Super tasty. You can mix it with that. You can also do our gin in the Hop Splash, and it's very good. So it's a nice, again, usable spirit. You can make margaritas with it. You can make martinis. We call them beaver-tinis here. You can do any number of different, favorites. Just substituting out the tequila or the gin. So,
what's your favorite cocktail with your spirit?
It varies by day. I'm kind of addicted right now to these hop splashes and the gin because it's so refreshing. I mean, it's a nice, quenches your thirst and you feel good. It's only 90 calories and, get off the tonic and the fat, right now. Yeah. But I'll do a gin and a hop splash, and then then I'll take up after dinner. I'll take up some of the Flyway and enjoy that. Wintertime, smoked old fashioned, smoked Manhattans. Of course, lends itself to that. I love Boulevardiers. I'm really addicted to those. There's a bar here in town that's actually taken our rye, and it's on the menu, and they do a killer Boulevardier. So enjoy going over and having that. It's a nice complex cocktail, and it's very enjoyable. So, but taking our vodka out of the freezer, can't beat that either.
No, that's a pretty good vodka.
Thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it.
It is. I'm vodka's one. I mean, it had its purpose, or you have vodka cranberry in the past, and gin especially for us, always had this really big thing just against it. My thing is, all my experiences with gin up until almost 2 years ago was everything reminded me of the perfume my great aunt would wear at a wedding. It was just offensive, and it was overwhelming. And then we had Fred from Dancing Goat, and it had their Death's Door gin. He's like, I'm going to get you guys to like gin, and I'll be damned if he wasn't right. I mean, he got us in some good gins. We've had a few really good ones, and this one, Pat, I'm excited for you to try it too, because you're good. Pat's thing is the gin smells like the Christmas tree hanging from your rearview mirror. This is or his past experience. This is not.
That was my past experience. We have had some other ones that I think we were three drinks in that night before we had to do someone else's show, and we didn't realize that we were going to like the gin that much before we got on the other people's show.
Right.
Yeah.
We're like 10 minutes later, like real sorry.
Yeah.
It's a tasty gin, and what's great is that we don't do it with NGS. We're making that gin using a third distillation of the beaver liquor. So part of that complexity of the gin is the base spirit itself. So it plays a huge role in that taste profile. And again, breaking the rules, right? You're supposed to make gin with GNS. So, go away from it. Do something.
Are you planning on barrel aging any of it at any point?
We're going to be doing a barrel aged gin probably here starting in November, and we'll probably introduce it in the springtime. people are looking for gin. So
yeah. Are you going to use some of your barrels, or are you going to do new barrels?
That one will probably go to you. I'm thinking actually we get some used barrels from Wilderness Trail. We might throw that into one of their barrels, or it could come out of depending on when we dump our own bourbon. We'll use some of our bourbon barrels moving forward. But we recycle our barrel. I mean, we pop a barrel, we dump it, it gets filled immediately, whether it gets filled with our base, which is the beaver liquor, or it gets filled over at a brewery like Secret Trail. We'll take it over there and they'll dump beer in it, do a big stout, and we'll bring that stout back and we'll age or do a finish with the stout. So I think the Pacific Flyway with the stout finish is going to be, talk about complex, going to be super interesting. So
I think that could be a really fun hit of chocolate on the end of that.
Yep.
Okay.
So, try and do a lot of different things. So when are you guys going to do the other tasting of the other spirits?
Pretty soon.
I should get them tomorrow. So within the next probably week and a half or so. Yeah. That's probably when we'll hopefully
record them all and put them up.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your feedback on them.
Oh, well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited about it. I've heard nothing but good stuff, so it's just me waiting.
Yeah. And I can say my first experience trying your stuff was a little over a year ago on it was one of the ABV tastings, and so I mean there was really good stuff that night going around, but it's what stood out was yours because it was just so unique and different, and Christy was on there too, and I was texting her, I'm like, man, we got to get a hold of some of this stuff and try to get him on my whiskey den. And she goes, yeah, well, we've already been talking to him on Distillers Talk, and we go and so we'd all been talking around, back and forth, and luckily finally happy to get you on the show. But truly, no, your stuff stood out amongst all the other whiskey because it was an early flyway, and then there was the new make that we sampled, and it was just crazy. It's like in a crowd, it was like, like Manute Bol in an NBA game, just completely standing out above everybody else.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. The staff loves to hear that stuff, and they work hard for it. And there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into this stuff. So appreciate that.
Oh, that's excellent. So yeah, probably in the next week or so, we'll let you know as soon as we have that coming out, or we're going to be doing that one. But what else do you have coming out later this year?
Well, later this month, I guess I could blow the secret. We have gotten accused of making soju so many for the last 3 years, and we're finally going to do it. But it's going to be California style soju. So we're going to use yeast, obviously, and we've been tasting up against some of the top line soju that we have imported here from Japan, and I think it's going to hold its own. So it's called Biba. So Biba is beaver in Japanese, and Biba soju, and the California style, and very cool bottle, very bright and flashy. So as soon as those labels come in the next 10 days, we'll get that bottled up and I'll send you a bottle. What's a great thing about soju is that people don't realize, unless you do a lot of drinking of soju and Asian drinks, it's 24 ABV. So you can extend your drinking in the evening because it's lower alcohol. Or if you come home and you just don't want to be wasted, midweek, you can take a bottle of this soju, take it out of the refrigerator or the freezer, put it in the refrigerator. If you go in the freezer, it'll ice up. Take it out, have a couple of nice, martinis with it, ice cold, and, not ruin your evening and not ruin your morning, and still have a very dynamic, flavorful drink to have at it. And
I found out to be like a nice mid-level ABV. for what you're having.
Yes.
Because a lot of times wines are like in 10, 14-ish, sometimes a little bit higher. Otherwise, you're jumping up. I always found that to be like a neat mid-level drink when you're getting to that
Right.
point. It's like a lot of times, like you said, it's 20, 24-ish in that area.
Yeah,
So,
and it's great, and it's refreshing, and it's got a lot of complexity into it, just like the beaver liquor. And so it's a great all-around beverage, and it's that great midweek drink. You can enjoy it, and of course have it with sushi. So, and that's even more important. You don't want to overpower your very delicate plate of food with a heavy alcohol. So, and beer, I have to say, I enjoy my beer and sake when I eat my sushi. But to be honest with you, starting to drink more soju with the mill is actually better. It's a better mill because you have a better, more attuned palate because you haven't blasted out with the hops or the alcohol, and so it's really good that way.
That's cool. I'm really excited about that. So.
Yeah, so it's one of the soju is one of the most popular drinks in the world. So, we're a little slow here in America jumping on, but we decided that we might as well make it. If we're going to be accused of making it, we might as well make it, and then be able to say, okay, this is the soju, and this is the beaver liquor, this is the whiskey. Now, they don't taste anything alike. They're all three different.
Well, and especially looking overseas like you guys are for sales.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
I think that's a really neat kind of torque of way of kind of like, I don't want to say fighting back, but putting your own spin on stuff when it goes there.
Right. It's just realizing that there's going to be a market there and taking a run at it, see how it goes. So,
that's cool.
But, again, it's that's the beauty of rice. I mean, if you were just doing corn, you couldn't do all those things. You couldn't do the suite of spirits that we make from the rice with corn. So it's an underplayed grain in the whiskey world and in the spirits world right now, other than in Asia, of course.
I don't want to see it, like sometimes you want to like, you as a person looking, you almost don't want to see it blow up, though you want it to blow up for people. It's like, I want to keep my little secret. You know what I mean? Like just stop. No. Like, but I think there, if not more people looking at it in general, I almost think, like you said, a blending or bringing it into some of their stuff, I think would add a lot more depth and complexity that most people are missing. Just because they haven't had enough of it. So I think it's, if not on its own, it as a component should be used more frequently, and hopefully in the future will be.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I think, the folks that have tried the flyweight bourbon or had an opportunity to try those 5 barrels, it's a very complex, very, very good bourbon that has a little more complexity to it and has a little different taste profile. Because like all things, you don't want to be tasting the same thing over and over again. I feel like having a big T-shirt that says, "Me Too Bourbon" with the big red circle and a hash through it. It's like everybody's making the same bourbon. I mean, don't do that. Go make something different. Alan Bishop pounds on it, constantly about, respect the grain, do something different. Don't be me too, I believe
it's what leaves an impression. You've had a lot of people who have something that tastes like this, that tastes like this, and you're like, oh, you did a nice job of mimicking it. It's when you have something different that it leaves that impression and leaves that mark in your memory, and that's what we love to see happen. Is like, bam, holy shit, let's mark this on a place to go to for a vacation. Circle.
Come to Chico, man. Come here. We have the home of Sierra Nevada beer. We got 4 really great craft breweries right here. We got 2 or 3 distilleries. So coming out, check out Northern California. And there's some more distilleries over on the coast that are also very, very good. So recommend everybody to come out and check us out.
Well, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I was to say for getting spirits out of California, I'm assuming California shipping to other states is. I know it's up and down. I've gotten things from California before, but it's from a merchant. Whether or not they were supposed to, it's not my problem. But people can get your stuff on Sealbox. Is there any other place that they can order your spirits?
Right now, for direct to consumer, that's the only outlet.
Okay.
We can't ship even within the state of California to customers. So that's how screwed up it is here.
Just for weird now,
but a liquor store can.
A liquor store can. You can call You can call any of the liquor stores here in Chico. They all carry our product. Now,
are you allowed to sell your product at least?
Oh yes.
At the distillery, as much as you want and stuff. I'm just making sure because it's like there's
3
some other
bottles a day.
states that 3 bottles. Good. There's
3 bottles a day.
That's pretty good though.
There's some other places we pick on,
like Texas
and Minnesota.
Yeah,
they're both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for being supposedly a liberal state, we have some of the most arcane and draconian laws anywhere. Earlier, I got to get I have to have another distillery license to have another tasting room. I mean, it's just unnecessary.
Yeah.
Charge me the $2,000 and let me pass go. You know what I'm saying? That's don't make it harder.
But if you were a winery, it might be different, right?
Wineries can have up to 3 tasting rooms in the state of California.
With slushy makers. Sorry,
yeah,
we pick up wineries too sometimes.
So, all right. So I get that's a question. Any chance you'll make a brandy?
We do make a brandy.
Oh, you do. Okay.
Oh, you do.
This is our pumice brandy.
Hold on.
So this is a grappa that's made from Sangiovese and Cabernet grapes. Okay, so after they press the grapes for making the wine, the winemaker brings it here, and we stick it in our still. We soak it overnight in the water and agitate it, and then after 24 hours, we distill it off, and we do 2 distillations. So not common when grappas. We usually just do 1. We do 2, and then we age. This batch was aged in a used Cabernet barrel. And that's why it has a kind of like that rosy color.
I was gonna say it has a nice color to it.
And it's a nice, easy drinking grappa. It's perfect for after dinner as a digestive, like it's supposed to be, and it's very popular here. So
that's very cool.
Very cool.
And we have another barrel going right now that we're going to finish as soon as I can find the right price barrel. We're going to finish it in the port barrel, and right now it's in a medium char barrel and medium toast. And then we're going to dump it and finish it in some port and play around with different finishes on what normally is just a very rough alcohol to drink. Grappa is usually pretty tough to hang with. So
I agree with you on that.
And then, excuse me?
I said I agree with that, but not that I haven't hung with it before, but for some people who aren't used to it, it can be a little bit at first.
So then, and then as far as brandies, we do have an excellent winery that's just north of here called Nouveau Claire, and I've been talking with the winemaker there about doing some brandies with her. So it's just a matter of timing and getting the fruit in here at the right time to make it happen. So
I love how you're doing it. You're like touching a little bit of everything.
Yeah, just
and earlier on too. I love it.
Got to have fun with the stuff, man. The equipment. One run only takes about 6 hours. So, there's 18 more hours left. Put it to work. Get that return on investment. So we have time to play. So
is your wife happy that she bought you that still?
Yeah, I think so. There's days that she's not happy, but she's a huge supporter of what I'm doing. And,
good.
Probably in a lot of ways she saved my life by buying that little still, because it gave me a place to go. So it was important. So, and
it's good
so
to have
it
that
was all
outlet
good.
and see it change into what's behind you there. I mean, that's
Yeah,
pretty amazing.
yeah.
So
Thanks. So we're having fun, and we're actually going to escape next week to Alaska with her mom on a cruise, which I'm not a cruise person, but I am looking forward to getting away for a little bit.
I'm not, but my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law came back from there, and between that cruise, which they loved, and when they were on a bunch of other ones, they said that's what everyone said was the one that they loved the best, not the Bahamas, not the other ones.
Right.
It was the Alaska trip. So good luck on that. I hope that goes well, and it's exciting. So
Well, my mother-in-law is gracious enough to give the trip to us because it's her bucket list trip. She's 88 and she wanted to see it, before it got too late. And I think she was nice enough to buy me the unlimited drinks package.
That's nice.
That is.
Now the question is there good bourbon and scotch on the trip? We'll find out. I'm sure there's a bar that's got a good collection.
I was gonna say, are you planning on sneaking a bottle of your stuff on by chance?
Well, I'm not going to sneak it. I'm taking it on.
Okay.
You're allowed to bring on. I think they give you an allowance. So
I was like 2 gallons or something. It was enough to be like, I think I can get a few more bottles.
Yeah. Well, you want your bottles so you can fill your flask when you go to the excursions, because that's when you want the little nip, right? So
yeah.
So we're going to take a couple of Beaver liquor flask with us and see what we can do. So
that's awesome.
Very cool.
That is very cool. But you've been on for an hour and a half, and we appreciate your time. But we also don't want to keep you. We don't want to keep you on too much because we know this is after hours, and we're just happy that you came on and tell everyone about what you're doing, because I think it's great. I'm excited. Whatever, and the soju you mentioned coming out. These are all releases that like make my head spin for a second, and that doesn't happen all the time. So it's great to have you on, Kris.
Thank you.
In the future, if you have stuff coming out, we would love, let us know. We would love to tell people what you have coming out, if it's going to be through Sealbox or even just through California. I know Oscar and a couple other people we know in California. We're pretty excited that you were coming on. So
good. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, and like I said, when you do your tasting, if we get some of this soju bottled in time, we'll run that out so you can have it in your comparison and get that out to you. And but yeah, Seal Box right now is the answer to everybody outside California. And if you're in California, you're just going to have to take a drive up here or check out one of our retailers here in Northern California.
Yeah, definitely got to them. So thanks for being on, Kris. We greatly appreciate it. Mike, do you have anything before we take off?
No, this has been very enjoyable, it's not what you think it is. People, if you're turning your nose up at rice, don't, because it's not what you think it is. It's a really good experience. That Pacific Flyway is that's a treat. That's a really nice treat of a whiskey, and I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. Well, remember, it's not the size of the den that matters. It's the love of whiskey. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Let's get to it. 1, 2, 3. Let's get some more.